The Walt Disney Company and Lucasfilm have done grave damage to Star Wars. The Mandalorian Grogu, perhaps just the first flop in many if they try to put out movie after movie. And what have we told you? The whole thing, orchestrated by Kathleen Kennedy, may have come down to destroying Anakin and Luke Skywalker. And now we found out the Acolyte Season 2, which may not come true, was always designed to destroy the main characters from George Lucas. Hello, folks. Hello, friends. Welcome back yet again. It's a groovy day. It's a great day. And why? Because you chose to come our way, where we continue to keep you ahead of the culture curve. It's what we love to do, folks, and we love having you here. We've got Lauren Connor with us. Folks, smash that like button, and let's dive into a deep Star Wars discussion. Lauren, it's no fun watching Star Wars stumble and bumble its way through the box office. But what we're finding out is maybe they pulled the ripcord just in time. At least behind the scenes, Kathleen Kennedy kicked out of the club. Leslie Headland, no more. They're begging they want more Acolyte, but that's not going to happen probably. Lauren, we released a video yesterday covering what they tried to do with the Acolyte and how they wanted in season 2 to come back and destroy Anakin, make him be some sort of strange, force-conceived through manipulation and witchcraft kind of guy. And Lauren, you pushed back on me behind the scenes. You said, actually, Pro, that's not far off from what they originally wanted to do. Lauren, can you explain what they wanted? And then we're going to talk about how it is they nearly destroyed Star Wars and what they can do to fix it. What was the original plan for Anakin from George?
So this goes back actually to the Legends canon, the old EU. This would have been from James Luceno and the story of the Darth Plagueis novel. So in that story, you had Darth Plagueis in concert with Palpatine trying to directly manipulate the Force to tip the balance towards the dark side. And when they did that, the Force reacted, and as a counterbalance to that, created the Chosen One, which is where Anakin came from. Now, this is then from that now non-canon novel, so not necessarily directly from George, but that does mean that manipulation of the Force was the thing that caused Anakin to be conceived. So it's not terribly far off in that sense from what the Acolyte did. Now, the problem with the Acolyte then is that you have this other story prior to Plagueis that is what caused the generation of somebody using the thread. And that comes into that kind of a stolen valor sort of storytelling that they sort of also tried to co-opt by putting Plagueis in at the very end by seeing him leering at them through this cave, which was insinuating that perhaps he was picking up the method of doing so from these Force witches.
Okay, so that's the change then from what George Lucas had originally intended, this whole thing about the witches and the witchcraft. And once you brought in Amanda Stenberg's character, this whole thing, I think, was meant to be that, hey, Anakin's not the only one. He's not the chosen one. And so I think they were planning to ruin the whole thing. You agree or disagree there?
Whether that was their intent or not, it was certainly the impact, and one of the reasons that I think that the fan base rejected the story, besides the other nonsensical issues like rocks catching on fire, and once again, taking a paternal figure that was trying to take care of these kids in a tragic situation and then making him directly responsible for their psychosis and him accepting that he needed to die. It was a very anti-male perspective, an anti-father figure perspective, which seemed to be what Lucasfilm under Disney has been interested in promoting. And I think when you are pitching these kinds of stories to boys who are looking for some type of a, call it a worldview, I guess, in life, and somebody to look up to, that's not necessarily Anakin, but Anakin is the tragic example not to follow, where Luke would be the example of the corrective good father who is there to be the one that ultimately rescues you, or the person that always shows up when needed. That's why Luke's return in The Mandalorian Season 2 worked, and why Luke in The Last Jedi did not.
Yeah, and so Lauren, people could say, well, these guys are just nerding out right now. Folks, if you've hung in with us for 5 minutes, let me tell you why it matters, okay? This is not just us nerding out about something. See, I believe, Lauren, that these kinds of stories are actually the delivery system for philosophy and ethos to young people, especially. And so I think that this was the number one franchise in the world. It's not like we're talking about, some little anime that nobody's heard of and spending a lot of time on this, or some episode of Star Trek, from season whatever, from some show that less people watched. This was the biggest franchise. And no shade being intended for our Star Trek fans out there. But what I'm trying to say, Lauren, is this was a big deal. And what made it be a big deal, matters. And partly I think that is that Anakin represents the idea of the father figure who, and he's the inverse of Luke, right? So he has all of the hopes and dreams and ambitions, but he's corrupted by the darkness and he's overcome by that. And then it's his son who manages to return him to being the chosen one and fulfill the prophecy as it was supposed to be, because his son redeems him, because his son realizes that the evil that we see in the world exists in all of us. And so we have to defeat the evil within before we can defeat the evil beyond. And then in doing so, we might actually even be able to redeem the sins of the past generation. Okay, that's a heck of an ethos, right? That's a heck of a philosophy. And that's embedded into Star Wars. And so a kid who watches Star Wars may not be able to articulate that the way that I just did. And yet it's articulated in the story. It's embedded in the story. And I think that the most important stories actually have that inside. So when they start reversing this, inverting this, that's when I say, okay, what are they up to exactly when they do that? Like, are they knowledgeable enough? And I think they are. I think they recognize the importance of these stories. Are they doing it on purpose because they hate the patriarchy? They disagree with the hero's journey. And I think that's true. I think a lot of these people are radicals.
Right. And the part that I would add to that is a thing that we talk about many times when we're discussing these things backstage. The issue that I think that they take issue with is the idea of redemption being possible. And the redemption that takes place for Anakin at the end of Return of the Jedi is a personal redemption to Luke. It is not a redemption for all of the war crimes that were committed by Darth Vader. If Anakin had lived, you can bet that the New Republic would have brought him up on war crimes trials, and that he likely would have been incarcerated or executed. But there was a personal redemption that took place where he changed his heart and his soul, and he rejected the dark path that he had been on in order to save his son. That is an important message. What the Acolyte was illustrating was that there can be no redemption for the father figure. He must be punished, and everything is his fault. And I think this is the core ideal, unfortunately, that Kathleen Kennedy was pushing through her various projects. And that's why many of them were female-centered and intended to make the male characters, the classic characters, failures. They never did actually succeed, and all of them paid a price for it.
Took away their happy endings, took away their story arcs, took away their development, reset them, and made them into complete and total failures before killing them. So, yes. Fun times. Okay, so Lauren, I think we've explained why the Acolyte season 2 is not going to happen. I think we explained why what they were up to was to destroy the lore. And we've clarified, because honestly, you brought it to my attention. I was wrong. The way that I had described the situation was incorrect with the video we released yesterday. And as folks may not know, one of the reasons that you and I get together is because you corrected me years ago. The very first introduction we had to one another was you corrected me, and I sat and looked at it and I said, he's right. And you continue to be right, and you keep me in the center, and I appreciate that. Lauren, let's talk about going forward then, because Mando is just in the gutter. I mean, you can't get worse, and I don't care what John Wayne's grandson says. This is not a good place to be, and Star Wars cannot continue to be here, or else it's going away. It's going away. Pick what you want to do. So here's what I want to ask you, Lauren. It's looking more and more every day like they are going to have to drop the sequel trilogy. And, maybe they kick it off into a separate timeline, or they call it an alternative, it doesn't matter to me. But whatever they do, one of the things we've heard they are likely to do, and now we've got proof that, they've hired the actor who plays Anakin to come back for, a multitude of projects now, which gives us some belief in the scoops that we've heard, that they want to get Anakin with this Dave Filoni character, Ahsoka, to go reset the timeline somehow. So, Lauren, my question to you is, You know, when we look back at what George Lucas had, it was a very clean cut, nearly perfect symbolism. Maybe you might call it a massive parable, you know, with the father and the son situation, the son redeeming the sins of the father. Anakin is the father figure. He becomes the chosen one because of the virtue of his son. That's very clean. The first 6 movies are very concise in telling that. Okay. How do we, because the sequels destroyed that, I think they destroyed that Anakin's the chosen one. I think Rey usurps him. And I mean, they're bizarre. But how do we do this thing with an Ahsoka character that 70% of the population doesn't even know? They don't understand her. How do we put Anakin with her and reset this in a way that's not totally convoluted and breaks everything?
There's no way to do it, I don't think, that doesn't come across as clumsy. I suppose, I think that the issue that needs to be resolved and the trigger that they use for it is that Ahsoka should not have countermanded her intended death at the hands of Darth Vader in Rebels. That is the event that needs to be undone.
Can we do that in the yellow, you know, the yellow crawl at the beginning? Can we say she shouldn't be alive? And just
no. Because you still have to explain who the character is. I think the only way that you can do it in a way that would make sense to a casual audience who doesn't know who she is unfortunately, you're still going to have probably a great deal of expository text, but the cleanest way is I think the cleanest way is with a Force ghost. I think you have Anakin himself do it.
Can you get Qui-Gon Jinn? Can we call Liam and say, hey, you're gonna have to do the Force ghost thing with her and say,
you could, but I think that Hayden actually makes more sense because he was her master. They have already had an encounter in the world between worlds. In fact, I would argue that in season 1, he was giving her a lesson that she needed to have, and this would be the second part of that lesson.
And we have to do the movie, right? Because a TV show is not going to cut it. We're going to reset the whole Star Wars stuff. And Lauren, let me tell you this too, so people can probably tell. You know, woo! Look at Pro. He's got all this blurriness. You know, folks, the studio behind me is a green screen. It's a real studio, and I'm usually there, but right now I'm not. Lauren, I've been at the Walt Disney World Resort doing the stuff that we do, which is we have to engage in the entertainment and we have to engage with Disney and all that. I was recently in Galaxy's Edge at Hollywood Studios. It's the Star Wars area. 15 minutes to get on the brand new version of Smuggler's Run, the Millennium Falcon.
Yep.
15 minutes. 15 minutes.
I'm not surprised.
So they have to fix this. People don't care. They have to fix it.
I am afraid it is too late. I really think that it's too late. I think that the Mandalorian and Grogu is the death knell. They are still trying to spin. I'm sorry?
I disagree. I think that it's the last chance for them to wake up and go, whoa, we have to do something and do it now.
The issue that I see is that they are still attempting to defend it. And I do not yet see a willingness from those people that are in charge. They're trying to spin it as...
Wait a minute. Hold on. You're right. Okay? I know you're right, Lauren, but hang on. It's just John Wayne's grandson. We've been covering that on the channel. It's John Wayne's grandson. But have you heard... Pedro is not saying anything. Filoni's not saying anything. Favreau's not saying anything.
Filoni did say something. That's the thing. It's not just...
Don't do that to me.
It's not just Brendan. And
okay, what did Filoni say?
This is third hand. This was not Filoni directly saying it, but it was, I believe it was also Brendan quoting Filoni, who said that he takes a long view of these things and believes that there is still story here to tell, and that he's not worried about the box office. And the message is that they're going to continue doing what they're doing. And I think the time for that has long since passed.
Lauren, do we really think that Brendan's going to come out and say, behind the scenes, Filoni's freaking out. He says it's all over, man. We're going down, man. Like, he can't say that. So yeah, I got
you're
it.
never going. You're never going to say that, but it is nearly impossible for me to imagine them being in a worse position than they are now.
Yep. No,
And
I'm with you, man. This is rock freaking bottom. We're there.
yeah, it's a depressing place to be. I think the question that you're leading to is, suppose they do it. Suppose they, where do we go next? The problem, and this is a problem that they had with the sequel trilogy, and I think that this is a lot of what undermined it to begin with, is that, okay, if you start from that presupposition that the sequel trilogy didn't happen and we're going back to the end of Return of the Jedi, there are a few things you have to accomplish. You have to restart the Jedi Order. You have to have Han and Leia in a successful relationship, and they all have to have scenes together. Those are the core things to start with. They cannot have diametrically changed into different characters than the ones that we knew.
And you want Millie Bobby Brown to play Leia. I got it.
But besides that, you have to have some overarching conflict for the galaxy now had to have to be facing. And this is where I think they've got a real problem that they have to address. And that is, what the sequel trilogy tried to do was bring the Empire back. That was a mistake. The Empire
with no answer how it happened. That was the other mistake. Just all right.
What you need is an enemy for the Jedi, and that enemy is the Sith. It's not the Knights of Ren, it's the Sith. But Lucas wanted to tell a closed loop story, which was this prophecy was to bring balance to the Force, and to George that meant ending the Sith. That's been done. Now, my pitch on this would be, okay, but the Sith left monuments behind. They left records behind. Those could be discovered, and the Sith cult could be restarted. But the way that George approached it was with an air of finality, because he didn't think that there were going to be additional movies. And I think that is ultimately a problem that Disney wrestled with, and weirdly they decided in this one tiny instance to abide by what George said and not resurrect the Sith. And I think that was one of the major problems that they had off the starting mark.
I think they could have Luke. I mean, if we're just theory crafting, I mean, there's 100 things they could do, but they could have Luke realize that you're going to have to deal with, the good and the bad. I think we've talked, Lauren, before about, how the Jedi had put themselves into a bad place, and Luke could come into this with a more broad perspective as to what the Jedi should be and where they had, fallen astray, and you could have somebody turn against him within that, And
that's ultimately the story hook that a lot of the EU dealt with, is that as a teacher whose masters were gone, he was having to figure out how to train students. And the tricky thing about young students is that they tend to be pretty headstrong, and they have their own ideas. And as wise as you may be and as well-intentioned as you may be, a lot of times your students want to run before they walk, and that tends to lead to trouble. There's lots of conflict that you can get into there. But the danger is that can also become formulaic real quick, and you don't want to just rehash things that have gone before. You don't want to necessarily make Luke Obi-Wan to some student's potential Anakin. So I think you'd have to be clever about how you deal with it. But that's at least one direction that you could go if you were going to take off from here. But then you also have to deal with, obviously, we're not going to get Harrison back. We're not going to get Mark back. Carrie is gone. You have to recast.
What do you want to do?
That's another thing that they will have to address and deal with if they want to repair the foundation of this franchise.
Here's the thing, Lauren. We're in the age now. It's not forthcoming. It's here, where people are going to make their own Star Wars. They're going to make it for free. So Disney can either get on board with giving people what they waited 30 years to have, which was Jedi Master Luke, or people are going to make it on their own. That's it.
The thing that I am somewhat excited about, and this is where I take the advice of Lew Wasserman's Ghost, which is, don't make Star Wars with AI. Make your own thing. It's time now where it may be time to just lay this thing to rest and to allow some new visionary to come up with their story that becomes the next generation Star Wars.
Yep.
And that way you can own it and monetize it and bury these people that have destroyed the franchise that we loved. It's time for them to learn the lesson. And that's why I think that we're kind of in agreement that the audience is no longer, they were never really apathetic. They thought they were apathetic, but this latest release has revealed that no, we're still angry, and now we want revenge.
But folks, listen, if you're going to go make your own Star Wars, you're going to make your own Star Trek. And I'm not talking about you're going to make the same thing and regurgitate it with the same characters. There's nothing wrong with that if you're going to make fan fiction through AI, or what are you going to do? But if you want to make your own thing, if you want to start from scratch and make your own franchise, which you for the first time ever, you'll have that power, okay? Remember, Star Wars is not just space wizards with light up swords. There's a deep philosophical ethos that's the foundation of Star Wars. And without that, it never becomes the number one franchise. There's 1,000 sci-fi stories out there. There are plenty of great looking ships and cool blasters and all that stuff. The story that resonated with every single kid out there that said, hey, there's a dark side inside of you. And generations before you fell to it. And you'll fall to it too. The hard thing is to not do so. That story matters, folks. Go find what it is you want to say that will connect with the next generation, and you're on to something big then. All right, Lauren, thank you for correcting me and for leading into a deeper conversation. I think we went places today. Lauren, tell the folks out there what it is you do around here besides everything. And you really do now, Lauren. Lauren, can I just tell people, Lauren, it has been a true pleasure bringing you onto the team and you becoming much more integrated into everything we do. And without you, we just couldn't do it.
Well, I appreciate that, but we've been doing it for a long time. I'm just getting a little more integrated. For folks who don't know, I've been doing trying to revive that Podplace channel. So please, if you're not already subscribed there, please go there and subscribe. Right now, we've got a ton of content up for the Genre Guys and for the Lorne and Apollo show. We're going to have additional content coming soon. We're trying to get as much engagement there as we can. So browse through the stuff that's already been released, watch it, give it a like, a comment, all that stuff for engagement with the algorithm. If you don't mind, I would consider it a personal favor. And we look forward to having more stuff for you down the road that'll hopefully be a surprise.
There you go. Folks, come check us out on the Pro show tonight. If you're watching this video at the time of release, 9 p.m. Eastern, we can't wait to have you there. We'll be talking more about Mando and Grogu and the fallout, Lucasfilm not handling it well, and it's about to get really ugly because Toy Story is going to suck all those screens away. Bye-bye, Pedro. Bye-bye, everybody else with Mando. We hate it for you, but, we're not negativo. It's just we call balls and strikes around here. That's what's going to happen. Toy Story's going to make a ton of money, okay? Talking about calling balls and strikes. You think, oh, bro, he's just negative about Disney. Whatever. Well, we'll have a review out of the theater for Toy Story on Thursday, but it's going to make a lot of money. It's going to make ridiculous bucket loads, wheelbarrow loads. It's going to make semi loads of cash and gold. Scrooge McDuck is going to be jealous of this one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you real soon. Smash that like button, subscribe, share this out. And until the next time, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.